Hey guys, Andy here. So I've been playing with the Moto G6 for the last, well, about a week, but I did take a gap in the middle where I was going away for the weekend. And quite frankly, I wanted to go back to my Pixel 2 XL because it's going to be one of my main cameras, basically, video cameras and stills cameras. And regardless what you might think of the G6, it's never going to be up to the level of the Pixel 2 XL, so I did swap back for a couple of days, came back to it, finished using it for a few more days so that I could do the review. Now, the Moto G is kind of a bit of a soft spot in my heart because it was one of the first phones that really went big on my channel. The unboxing for the original Moto G is still my most watched unboxing with 108,000 views back in November 2013. And back then, I mean, I don't know, I must have only had 1,000 or so, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers. So it was very big, went very big for me. Shortly followed by the Nexus 5, which went very big as well. But anyway, so I did lots of different videos and all of them were quite popular. And just, I suppose also just because the phone, it was just so good for the price that you paid. I think the retail might have been about 130. You could find ways to get them for about £90 though. So the Moto G was a phone for me that actually brought a lot of my family into Android. I sort of got them, I bought them the Moto G, and sort of taught them how to use Android. Well, a couple of them, a few of them, but it was that good. It was such a smooth device for the money that you paid, just so impressive. It had some flaws, but for £100, what do you expect? Anyway, so I think I've followed most of the Moto Gs through. I always remember the 2 was a bit of a disappointment for me. The 3 wasn't so bad. Then the 4 and 5, and now we're at the 6. But somewhere in there, well, Motorola's been bought and sold by various different people. So I think Google bought them, stripped them of their patents, and then I think Lenovo now own them, as it says on the side of the box there. So it's actually the Lenovo Moto G6. So I do wonder how much the Moto G part of it is just the name. Doesn't really mean as much now. A bit like Nokia. So Nokia bringing phones out again now, but it's not actually Nokia, is it? They got sold and it's someone else just using the Nokia name, I think. Anyway, let's not get too off track. So let's look at the actual device and its design. I think the first thing you notice, well, there's two things you notice perhaps, that it is quite a glassy sort of design, even if it's not actual glass. And it is very slippy. It's one of the slippiest phones I can remember using. I have felt a little nervous sometimes using it one-handed, just because I don't feel like I've got a good grip. Now, there is a case that comes in the box. I'm not a case kind of person, so you could say, well, it's your own fault if you drop it, which it is, and I've not, but it is a slippy phone. Just be aware. So if like me, you don't like using cases, then just be aware of that fact. And you might not want to use a case just because I do love the sort of the look of the device, the deep indigo, deep indigo, which is kind of a really dark deep blue that does look, I think, very nice. The next thing you might notice, especially while I'm looking at the back, is the camera bump. It is quite a considerable camera bump. I mean, not that it's massively much deeper, I think, than others, but I guess because it is quite big and round, housing the 2 lenses and the flash, which we'll come to later on. But I have seen comment of some people really put off by that. I guess they think it's a bit ugly. I think for me, it kind of fits in with the Motorola design. That's kind of how they've been with these things. The other thing you might notice is the front-mounted fingerprint sensor. It's actually quite slim. The bezels themselves are quite thin. I mean, it's not sort of crazy thin. I'm just looking to see what the screen ratio is. 75.4%. So it's not bad, but there are better. But yeah, the front-mounted fingerprint sensor, it seems generally pretty good. I've not really had any issues with it. In fact, sometimes I'll be pulling out of my pocket, and I'll accidentally put my thumb on the fingerprint sensor and it's unlocked already. So it's not blazing quick, but it's pretty reliable. I think that's probably the main thing. Personally, I think I prefer a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor. It's a bit more natural, and once you're used to that, even after using this for a few days, I still every now and then keep trying to touch on the back for the fingerprint sensor. But that's your choice, I suppose, if that's an issue for you or not. The actual hardware, the device itself is 167 grams and 8.3 millimeters thick. So, I mean, it certainly doesn't feel heavy, it doesn't feel big and bulky. I wouldn't say it's an issue in that respect. The system on chip is the Snapdragon 450. So not even kind of I think mid-range you would say is a 600 so, which we'll come to shortly when we talk about the different versions of the Moto G6. But this one's a Snapdragon 450. The CPU is an octa-core 1.8 GHz Cortex A53. The GPU is an Adreno 506. It's got 4 GB of RAM, and that kicks out in Geekbench around about 4,000. So in Geekbench 3, which I've used for many years, it's 4,200. In Geekbench 4, it's 3,900. This particular one has 64 GB of storage. It has a pretty good speaker, which has Dolby sound. So let me just start by playing a bit of my podcast.
So here she is. She's working on a spreadsheet. You got to match. You got to match numbers. So it's the easiest spreadsheet ever. Florence is 25. She doesn't have a lot of employment opportunities here. She's taking what she can get. She's in a cube. She's doing what she can.
So there's a little bit of distortion there, right at the maximum volume. I don't generally have it at the maximum volume. It's good enough speaker that I don't need to have it at the maximum volume. It averaged 86.2 decibels on my test, which is kind of middle of the pack. Certainly, I think for me, actually, what the big difference is just the actual quality of the sound. So I'll play it again in just a second, but it just sounds very well rounded, and that might be helped by the graphic equalizer, which at the moment is set for music, but there's various different. I didn't particularly use these much, if I'm honest. Let's go back and play it again just briefly.
Her mother's gonna call, and so you can do that.
Yeah, no, keep going. Keep.
You gotta answer it, unfortunately, to move forward.
So I never know quite how well that's going to come out on my my microphone just here, but it sounds better than a lot of speakers. It really does. It's not a tinny. It's a bit closer to like a Bluetooth speaker that you might use. Volume level not the same as a Bluetooth speaker, but just the quality of it. So when I listen to my podcast at night, I normally put them on before I go to bed. I put the timer on, and I did notice that actually it's a really good quality voice that's coming. I don't really listen to the music. We'll play a little bit of music. So, I mean, it actually sounds louder than the sort of the score that got in my test, to be fair. But yeah, bottom line, it is a good speaker. I don't know if you realise it's coming out of the top there, where the earpiece is. The device does have NFC. I've got to say, I haven't particularly used it. I've not really need to use NFC. I don't use Android Pay and things like that. It takes a nano SIM, but it can fit 2 of them. You can fit 2 and a micro SD card. There's not many devices that will do that. So literally, you can have two SIM cards and a micro SD card. Most of them, the second slot is either a SIM card or a micro SD card, but you can get both. So that could be really important to some people. And finally, it does have micro USB Type-C, and we'll come to battery and charging in a little while. So the screen itself is 5.7 inches, an IPS LCD, 1080 by 2160 pixels. That's an 18 by 9 ratio, and about 424 pixels per inch that works out as. As I've mentioned, 75.4 screen ratio. It only reached 501 lumens at its maximum when I was doing my screen test with my light meter, which is actually lower than the G4 and the G5. So that's the last 2 generations perhaps had a brighter screen than this did. It seems a little bit weird. Having said that, I wouldn't particularly say it was an issue. I suppose I used it a little bit outdoors. It is very bright and sunny over the last month or 2 in the UK. I didn't use it a huge amount outdoors, if I'm honest. Actually, that would have been the best test when I was away for the weekend and I used a different phone. But I can't say I had any issues with being able to see the screen, and I think what I said was 420 something pixels per inch does give a nice clear screen. The colours all look good. It used to be LCD screens looked a little bit washed out, but I wouldn't say that's the case these days. They're generally pretty good. Because it's LCD, it doesn't have an always on screen, which actually I've really got used to with my Pixel 2. And I kind of missed it a little bit, but it does have, what do they call it, Moto display, which wakes up quite well if you get anywhere near the phone. If you want to see what your notifications are, and you can still operate them from there, like that. It does have, I'll just mention at this point, I'm probably supposed to mention it later, but it does have face unlock. It's not going to do it now, look, maybe I have to press the power. I did that off camera, I've just realised, which was no use to you at all. But the problem being the camera's in the way. We'll try it once more. We'll try and go round. There we go. So the face unlock works quite well. I think generally you want to just put your finger on the fingerprint sensor. It's probably a much better, easier way to go. So the cameras. It's a dual camera, 12 megapixel f1.8 and 5 megapixel f2.2. I think the smaller 5 megapixel mainly just to be able to get the depth of field or to be able to do the portrait shots and that kind of thing. It can film 1080p at 60 frames per second. The front-facing camera is 8 megapixels. It says in GSM Arena 8 megapixels or 16 megapixels. I'll be fairly sure it's 8 megapixels. In fact, I'm sure I saw somewhere else it was 8 megapixels. F2.2, if you didn't know, the F number wants to be lower. The lower it is, the wider the lens can get, the more light can get in, therefore the better low light performance you're going to get. So if we have a look in the actual camera app, there are quite a lot of different options. So if I slide in from the side, at the moment I'm on, oh sorry, not sliding from the side, that's moving over. So sliding again, and we go into the different options there. So portrait, as you would expect, cutout looks quite fun. I didn't actually get around to trying it. So you're supposed to take a picture of yourself. You can put other things behind you. Panoramas are fairly obvious. Text scanner, I did check this. The only thing I've really got nearby that I can, let's try it on the box. Don't know if I can get it far enough back. There we go. And it might confuse it because it's got all these other, those are the sort of circly bits, and yeah, no results. And the only, I should have prepared for that, sorry. The only other thing I've got nearby is something with my address on. But I can tell you, it read my address quite well and turned it into editable text. So I can imagine that actually being quite useful. Any other bits that I didn't talk about? So video modes down the bottom, look. YouTube Live, slow motion, face filters, all sort of reasonably fun bits and pieces. And it stores the last one that you did. So if we went to portrait mode, that goes in now as one of the options, and even when I go to the other options, portrait mode is still there until I go to choose a different mode, and then it kind of resets that temporary one in the middle there. We also have a direct link to Google Lens if we wanted to point at, I don't know, what can we, got some craisins. Can you tell me anything about that? Looking for results, there they are. Similar products, craisins, blueberry. So Google Lens is quite clever. It's funny, when I first unboxed the device, it had its own version of Google Lens basically, but then when it updated, it switched itself. So, do you know what? Let's just use Google Lens, which I think why not. So the actual quality of the photos, I think the stills, they generally look quite good. They seem quite crisp and clear. Honestly, I generally only tested it in very good conditions. I only realised the last couple of days, I thought, oh, I've not really tested it in sort of low light and things, because I've not really had much low light. I kept trying to remember to, just before I go to bed, run out and do a bit of film or something, and I won't lie, I forgot, because it's quite late in the summer. We're staying light till late. I will try and remember. I've not done a sort of video sample of this device yet on my channel, so I'm going to wait until I do remember to get some low light footage, and then I'll put the video sample together, so look out for that particularly. Anyway, back to the stills. Yeah, I think they look pretty good. I think the stills camera, I don't know what to say it was impressive, but it's good. It is good. The portrait mode was okay, not on the level of the big boys really, and also the front-facing camera generally seemed pretty good. Where it was let down, I would say, is the video. I thought the video was pretty bad actually. It was quite grainy and pixelated. Definitely very shaky because there's no any kind of stabilization, and that was what was my big concern of why I used the Pixel 2 XL for my trip away. So if video is important to you, I think that could be a bit of a deal breaker. Well, you can see some of the footage I'm showing you now. I guess you can kind of make your own decisions. And I say wait for the actual video footage that I will put up when I remember, basically. To touch on sort of connectivity of the device, I've mentioned it has NFC, which will be quite important for some people, not so much for me, but for some people. The Bluetooth, I'm not sure if it's a little bit weak, so there were a couple of times, to be fair, actually, when I went to the gym this morning, I didn't have any issues, but I always use Bluetooth earphones, and I had a couple of kind of, I wouldn't even call it intermittent, well, I don't know, crackles, slight breakages of the flow of the stream. But as I say again, actually today I don't think I had any, and it was normally as the device got further from the actual Bluetooth, and it had to sort of, I don't know, maybe pass through my body or whatever, and it struggled a little bit, which I definitely don't get with my Pixel. Wi-Fi and calls were fine, GPS was fine, everything else is good in that respect. Software wise, we're on Android Oreo 8.0, and I can show you that the security update is March the 1st. I have checked for anything newer, so I mean, it's not bad. I want it to be a little bit better, to be honest. We're, at time of recording, it's the 19th of July, so that is April, like three updates behind. And just as a comparison, the P20 Lite was on the 1st of April, and that was 2 or 3 weeks ago, so yeah, a bit of an issue there. The only problems I had software wise, I was trying to open an image in Facebook and it just kept seeming to freeze up the app. I'm not really sure what the issue was. Let's just try randomly. See, that one's open fine. And generally it's felt quite smooth and fluent. What was the other app? Oh yeah, Amazon. So I did have the Amazon shopping app open for Prime Day, and it seemed to be a little bit jerky, shall we say, not all that responsive. But I don't know, I mean, again, what's it doing? I don't know how much of that is the app, and how much of it is the device. But everything else I've been doing, it's felt relatively smooth and slick. I've mentioned the face unlock. Now I need to just switch over. I'm not sure the quickest way. So I've put Nova Launcher on it because the Moto app launcher to me looked pretty terrible. So initially it looks fine. It's actually, you know, it's reasonable. But then I put my Beyond Pod widget on, and look at that. And I can't make that any smaller. That's bizarre. I couldn't see anyway, so I couldn't see settings for the Moto. Someone might tell me in the comments where they are. Settings for the Home app, Moto Home app. So any new app I install, it puts it on the home screen. Why would I've got an app drawer? Why would I want them on the home screen? That's a very iOS thing of them to do, which does annoy me. But as I said, and let's just switch back over to it. Yesterday I switched over to Nova Launcher, as everybody should. And quite frankly, I just think it's a much nicer interface. I was looking for Pixel Launcher actually. I thought, well, I'll put the because I'm not quite sure. There must be a setting somewhere that I can't find at the moment. But I do prefer that you can just swipe up from anywhere. I mean, I've set it to be the app drawer button that I can swipe up on. But I do like the sort of swipe up from anywhere to bring the app drawer up. Gestures are quite nice, I think. Although it's kind of confused me. I think I found them when I was doing the unboxing video. And then I wanted to kind of look over them again, obviously, for the review, and I couldn't find the bleeders. I was searching in settings, I couldn't find them. And then I realised, actually, they're in the Moto app. So you've got suggestions for a few things over there, which, okay, why not? But over here on features, what we actually want are the Moto actions. I won't go through each one. I do like although I don't use it much, but the double karate chop for torch and twist for quick capture. So I'll come to that in a second, I suppose. And there's a few other bits for do not disturb. Moto voice, Moto display is the front screen. So got a few options there. So for example, for the camera, 2 twists. If you want to switch the camera around to the front facing, and then if you want the torch, double karate chop. I do like those. The Moto have had them for quite a while now, to be fair. Oh, you can use the fingerprint. You may have seen, I think I might have done it in the unboxing video. You can use the fingerprint sensor, get rid of the navigation bar there, the back, home and app switcher, and use the fingerprint sensor as home. Swiping it that way goes back, swiping it that way goes. I quite like the idea of it. I'm too used to now. I couldn't remember which way I was going with things, and I kept. So I turn it back off again. Although I do every now and then keep going. I want to do, like go home tapping the fingerprint sensor, and it doesn't. But yeah, it's it's quite nice if you can get used to it. The battery is a 3000 milliamp hour Li-ion battery. generally I was finishing most days around about 60%, no particular issues there. In my test, it came up after an hour's use, it was on 89%, which isn't great, but at the same time, I don't think the battery's a problem. Unless you're a super ultra heavy user, it shouldn't be an issue for you. So yeah, no issues I would suggest at that point. I want to move on to kind of talk briefly about the different versions. So this is just the regular Moto G. It's about £240. I got this one second hand for a bit cheaper. You've got the G6 Play at 170 and you've got the G6 Plus at 270. So if we look at the differences of the devices, the Play clearly is the budget version, obviously, not just the price. I mean, if you look at the specs, it's got an older CPU, the 430 Snapdragon. It's only got octa-core 1.4 GHz Cortex A53. It's got an Adreno 505. It's got 3 GB of RAM. I mean, I guess it is what it is. If you want to spend 170 on a phone, maybe that's not a bad option. Then the G6 and the G6 Plus, I guess one of the main differences is the screen size. So it's a 5.9 inch screen, same sort of screen ratio and pixels and stuff. The processor though is up to the mid-range Snapdragon 630 with an octa-core 2.2 GHz Cortex A53. It's also got the Adreno 508, and it says 4 or 6 gig of RAM. Again, I don't know how they sort of, that's the Europe version, so I don't know why it's one or the other. So that sounds to me like, wow, that's quite a lot more power for just £30. And I did think when I saw that, I thought, oh, I wonder if I should have held out and found a G6 Plus. But then I think it was on Phone Arena, so full credit to them, and I hope they don't mind and get me in trouble for showing you this graphic. So I use Geekbench 4. This is the multi-core score. I think I said to you I scored about 3,900. Well, actually, the Plus only just gets, well, it doesn't quite get to 4,200. So you're paying £30 more for only a very small incremental increase, which is weird because the specs make it sound quite a big step. Having said that, Phone Arena, I mean, look it up if you want yourself. They did have a few other benchmarks where the gap was bigger. I don't know the other benchmarks. Antutu, for example. I know Antutu, and the gap was a bit bigger than that. Yeah, maybe the screen size is the more important factor if you're deciding which of the versions you want from the regular and the Plus. So, I guess to my conclusion of the device, I do like it. It's a nice device. It looks good. It feels good. It is a little slippery, and that would concern me a little bit. I would maybe have to get a skin of some kind, which is a shame because I think it does look very nice. The deep indigo sort of shine is very nice, and it's kind of one of the features of the device. I've mentioned the camera bump, which puts some people off. Doesn't really bother me, and it's still reasonable on a surface. It doesn't rock about and wobble too much. The front fingerprint sensor should be considered, I suppose I would say. Again, not a big issue for me. I do prefer it on the back though. It's reasonably stock software, the Android 8.0, with some of Moto's additions I do quite like. Some of Moto's bloat is actually quite useful. I like their camera app. I like their gestures. So I would say that's kind of a plus. And it does seem smooth and fast, aside those two issues that I mentioned that I did come across in Facebook and Amazon. The camera does great stills, but the video is probably my biggest concern with the device. Again, you've seen the footage. Wait for the more detailed footage if you like, but that would probably be my bigger concern. So all in all, yeah, good device, not such great video. The screen, although the brightness was not as good, actually the screen still looked very good. So yeah, I mean, for a £240 device, or maybe cheaper if you can find a second hand, you do get what you pay for, and actually this is not bad for sort of 200-ish area of devices. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Please do comment down there. I do read them all, and I'd maybe try and reply if it's necessary. But for now, my name's Andy, and I'll catch you all again soon. Well done, and thank you for making it to the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, you might want to click the little fellow that should hopefully appear about here to subscribe. You may also want to check out some of my other videos, which are going to appear somewhere there. Also, come and have a look at my website, androidandy.uk. There is also a forum. Come and say hello on the forum if you've got any questions about things, or request me to review things, or anything else. Just come and have a chat on the forum.